Assalamu alaikum. Our topic of presentation is MVC architecture. It's going to presented by Ahmad Hassan 221775 and Faraz Ashraf 221847. Basically first introduction. MVC is basically an software architecture design pattern for implementing user interface on computers. And it consists of mainly three kind of components. That is the model, the view, and the controller. Each of these components were built to handle specific development aspects of an application. MVC is one of the most frequently used industry standard web development to create scalable and extensible objects. The first component is model. The model component and is the MVC in the MVC design pattern represent data and the business logic of an application. It is responsible for managing the application data, processing business rules, and responding to requests of the information. The model component correspond to all data-related logics that user works with. These represent that either data that is being transferred between the view and the controller components or any other thing like that. For example, a customer object that retrieves the customer information from database, it manipulates it and update data and back to the database. The second component is the view. It represents the presentation layer of an application. The view component is used for all kinds of user interface logic of the application. It is used to visualize the data that the model contains. View requests information from the model that it needs to generate an output representation. For example, the customer view will include all the user interface components such as drop-down text that final user interface and the user interacts with. The third component and the main is controller. Controller is basically work on both the model and the view. It is a part that handles user interface. Controller act as an interface between model and view component to process all kind of business logics, incoming request, manipulate data using the model component, and interact with the views to render the final output. Basically, model view, and controller are basically interact through a user. User is going to manage all three of that. And then uses in Java. In Java programming language, the model contains simplest the classes. View contain the to display data, and controller contain the servlet. And that is basically programming language that is going to interact in which classes are going to interact with each other. Due to this process separation, the user request are proceed. Next are the advantages of MVC architecture. Development application become fast, easy for the multiple developer to collaborate. MVC architecture design pattern has the feature of scalability that in turn help the growth of application, less dependency, usability, easier to develop, update the application, and we have multiple levels properly in written. That is why it is easier to debug any kind of application that is going to create in that developer. It makes easy for developer to work simultaneously in model, view, and controller. Now, my group fellow gonna presents how this works in Java programming language. Ahmad Hassan.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ahmad Hassan, and today I will be presenting the implementation of MVC using Java. So first of all, why do we use MVC? MVC is a model, is a design pattern that we use to distribute our coding throughout the whole program. So our code will not be cluttered and will be managed easily. So this is not only used in Java, but in many programming languages such as object-oriented programming and C#, C#, and plus they are used in Angular. So here I will just present you the implementation of Java here. As you can see, first of all, we have three layers here. First of all is my employee class. Next one is my employee view class, and third one is employee controller class. So I will present them one by one. So next slide, please. So here I have my model layer. So the model where what will the model layer do? The model layer will be interacting with the database. It is a database itself that will store the data of employee. Here you can see it is storing the employee name, employee ID, and employee department. Then it is responsible for getting the ID. This is getting the ID and it will send to the controller, and the controller will react with the view and which will send the information to the customer. Then we have the set ID and get name, set name, get department. These are the setter and getter of each other. So this piece of line of code is responsible for the creation of MVC architecture. So next up we have the view layer. The view layer is responsible for presenting the data to the customer. So here we can see this is the empty by class, and this is printing out the lines. This is the data that will visible to the presentators only. As if I'm the customer and I want to see output, I will be interacting only with the view layer. Next up, next up we have the controller layer. This is the main controller layer that will be responsible for interacting with the view layer and the model layer. So as we can see here, it contains the two objects, model layer and the view. This if I am a customer and I will interact with the view, this the view will interact with the controller layer. So requesting the controller layer, as we can see here, we have the update view here. This controller layer will update this controller layer will get the data from the database, which is also the model layer, and store it in itself, and then it will update the view layer to present the data in here. Next. Next up, this is the main Java. So main Java will contain the our representation of MVC architecture. First of all, we have in here the first of all we have in here the employee model. So employee model will be created as a database where we can store our all of the values. Then we are creating the view which will be representing which we can say the UI of our model interface. Then we have the controller. The controller will be initialized to communicate between the view and the model. And then we are constantly updating our controller view. This is we are doing this so we can refreshing our view layer to display the most recent data of our output. Then we have the controller set name, and we are here initializing our employee name as this is the employee, and then we are updating our view. This updating view will be responsible for the showing the most recent data of our employee. And then we are here presenting the static view of employee database. This is our database, and these things will store in our database, which will be then communicated with the control layer and then with the view layer. Next. So for the conclusion, this is the main structure for the database for the web development program. As MVC is a good design pattern as the star word in the web development for the good reason. It is ability to promote maintainability, scalability, code reusability, and it as a reliable code choice for the variety of code application. MVC is not a code or anything itself, but it is a design pattern. So we use it to manage our code. It is specifically used for the web development where we have the front end, then the server, then the back end. The front end is acting as a view in here. The server is acting at a model layer back then, and the database there which where we use MySQL, NoSQL, MongoDB or Django, etc. stuff like that is acting as a model layer in there. So using this MVC pattern ensures that our code will be easily manageable and changeable throughout the whole maintainability. So this ensures that if we want to add object or subtract an object for the code, we will not have to interact with the other layers itself. So thus it ensures the data integrity and scalability of our program. So uh, thank you for your interest. In MVC, this is for it lesson. These are the references. You can go there and get your information from there. So this is for it lesson. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.